there is no character development here. I felt nothing. I mean, I felt literally nothing for a single character in this film. This thing was written to move audiences from point A to B to C to D. That was it. There was nothing. I mean, there was no time for development. There was no time for you to get to know characters. It was just, hey, it's Snow White. You know who that is. Here's some stuff in your face. That was it.
Renegade Online.
This thing was wicked. No pun intended. There were so many reviews out there that tried to say, even the negative ones, and this is my point, even the negative reviews were saying the movie's terrible, the movie is just slop, it's corporate Disney garbage, it has no heart, no soul, all of which I agree. Oh, but Rachel Zegler turned in a shining performance. No, the hell she did not. Sorry. All these reviewers out there, I think what they believed was they could get away with trashing a truly terrible movie by giving themselves a bit of social cushion by trying to say that Rachel Zegler was great in it, but they had to have bitten their tongue. There's no way on God's green earth they were being intellectually honest. Now, a big part of that was the fact that Rachel Zegler, just like Gal Gadot, who also had a terrible, and I mean terrible, performance in this movie. Most of this was undoubtedly, unquestionably, squarely on the shoulders of the screenwriters and the director. The director was Mark Webb. I don't know who the screenwriters were. Mark Webb may have been involved in the screenwriting. I'm glad you're here. So you and I apparently had relatively similar reactions to this.
Oh my goodness.
This was
one of the worst films I have ever seen in my life.
It really, truly was. And I was saying earlier, I don't know how much of the show you saw before you hopped in. I went on a bit of a rant. I apologize to you in advance with the audience saying I don't have much of a filter right now after this one, because this was just an absolute giant bag of nightmare fuel. Everything about this movie was awful. I walked out of the theater and there were moms, there were good moms in the audience with their 4 kids, all dressed up as Snow White. There were 4 other people in there, all Disney adults, is what I got the impression of. And I'm walking out. It took every ounce of me, because you know I have a mouth, not to bust out laughing at certain moments of the movie.
Yes.
Not to make comments. And I walked out, and I didn't even realize until it came out of my mouth that I said this out loud as I was walking out. And I said, oh my gosh, I cannot believe Disney spent nearly $400 million on that trash. And I could hear the moms behind me as I was walking out, like, oops, I said that out loud. I was so bad at that point. I just, let me put it this way, and I mentioned this earlier. I don't know if you had the same experience, and then I want to get your thoughts. 4 very sweet, cute little girls behind me, and I'm talking like these girls were maybe 6, 7 years old, okay? They were all in their little Snow White costumes. The funniest thing was their little store-bought Snow White costumes looked no better than what Rachel Zegler was wearing on that screen, number one. Number two, and I found this fascinating, really fascinating, they were in the row directly behind me in the PLF. Half the time the movie was going on, they were running back and forth up and down the aisle, and they were chit-chatting, and they were having little girl conversations while the movie was... They were disconnected from the movie at least half the time. This does not seem to suggest that this movie is going to engender any kind of repeat business from the absolute core audience that Disney depends on. And I live, like I posted on Twitter earlier tonight, people are like, oh yeah, you don't live in a little area. I'm like, let me tell you something. No. I live in a rather affluent Louisiana suburb. And we don't have any municipalities here that have particularly large populations, quote unquote. But when you take the aggregate of the unincorporated areas, we've got 250,000 people around here. The fact that my theater only had 12 people in it, the fact that Disney's core demographic lives where I live.
Mhm.
I'm talking young families, young, affluent, middle class and upper middle class families with lots of children. I live in the middle of it. I live in America's core demo, and they weren't there tonight.
There were 8 people, including me and my wife, in that theater today. And same as you, by the way, we almost busted out laughing several times. We're hardcore
Yep.
Disney fans. I mean, I'll just tell you, the challenge in our house that we had one day was my wife and I had to turn away from the TV, and the kids went on the media server and started playing random Disney movies. And the challenge was to name the Disney movie within 30 seconds with just hearing the audio. This is how familiar we are with the Disney catalog. This thing, if it wasn't such an insult to Walt Disney himself, it's hilarious.
Big middle finger.
There are moments where I thought, I'm a little bit irreverent. I'm when I'm watching a movie, it's very hard for me to turn off the part of my brain that is thinking about how they made this movie. Every single thing that Rachel Zegler does, especially while she's singing, looks like every community theater audition I have seen for the last 10 years. This was horribly blocked.
Yeah.
Uh,
Don't even look. The cinematography and the direction were offensive to me, and they were offensive to me because this. If this had been a $10,000 piece of YouTube fan fiction, I'd have been like, wow. What a, I mean, look, good for them for spending their hard-earned money to make something they care about, right? This is a $400 million Walt Disney Company S&P 500 Dow Jones component production, and it looked like a cheap 90s after-school special. This thing looked like trash.
I mean,
trash.
It's the same thing I told you when we ranted on the phone. The Descendants has better cinematography and better shot composition than this.
Trash?
It really does. It really does. This was depressing to me to watch this. And earlier I was talking about how, like, look, I'm a man who understands photography, cinematography, videography. I mean, it's when I watch movies like 1917, the story is great. The acting is superb. The screenwriting is amazing. The directing is amazing. But the cinematography was exquisite. It was near godlike perfection. Roger Deakins, and that's why he won the Academy Award for it. And that cinematography took, even if the screenwriting and the directing in 1917 had been mediocre at best, that cinematography would have been a song. It would have been an aria. It would have been Mozart. This movie had nothing. It had terrible screenwriting, terrible directing, no character development whatsoever. The Broadway scoring was atrocious, and the cinematography looked like an after-school special. But I mean, all that being said, kind of take that point by point. I mean, from a standpoint of the writing, am I crazy? Was there any character development?
None. When you're looking at any script, first of all, let's talk about something that I saw. You have Snow White, who is supposed to be this shy little girl, according to how she's been established throughout this whole movie here. She's supposed to be shy. She's supposed to be sweet. She's supposed to be someone who is just discovering that, oh, there are people that live a different life outside of the walls. And she needs to help them because her dad's not coming back. And he's the true ruler of this apparently communist utopia that they used to run, which makes my eyes almost roll all the way back into the back of my head. Communist gobbledygook, the entire premise of this film.
Wait, let me stop you real quick because you just said something. I don't know if you this was a private conversation I had earlier with Gary, Nerdrotic. I sent him the link. He had a very long day. He was going to try to make it today. Gary was scheduled, for those of you who don't know, members, here's an exclusive. Gary was supposed to join us today for the Disney annual shareholder meeting. Jonas knew this. Gary, the reason he did not make it is because he wound up getting into an earlier screening of Snow White. And he was watching the movie while we were covering the call, which is why he didn't. I know. And he came out and he said, That was nothing but, and I think his wait, let me look it up. I think he actually said communist gobbledygook. So, no, I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding.
I believe you.
No.
In the middle of all this, her
Change
hair
the word
changes.
of fairness. Yeah, the fairness word. Like the word fair and fairness was used an ungodly number of times throughout this movie. And it was used in the very Karl Marx version of it.
They're mining gems. Even apparently the villagers are mining gems, even though they've not run into the dwarves. I don't understand that. But there's a specific moment in the film where all of a sudden her haircut changes a little bit. It's a different color. I don't know if she's gained weight in the previous scenes or she's lost weight. It's obvious reshoots is what I'm trying to say right here.
Yeah.
And her characterization is completely different. All of a sudden, she's kind of naggy. She's tired of it's not the prince, it's like the king, the leader of the bandits, like totally different character for one scene. And then she goes back to sweet Snow White. Those reshoots stick out like a sore thumb. And don't even try to tell me that there are 7 bandits that all of a sudden have 3 lines of dialogue in the final version of the film. And those were not originally supposed to be the 7 dwarves.
Thank you. Thank you. That was the most obvious thing. This idea, Mark Webb coming out and doing these interviews out there saying, well, we always intended to animate the dwarves. Okay. You know what? Maybe so. I'll take it at face value. But you know what? After seeing what we saw in the UK Daily Mail and seeing the picture of those actors, those bandits traipsing down a hill with drone shots. By the way, that shot in that field and that drone footage, it wasn't anywhere in the movie. It was not there. It was gone. There was nothing. The bandits were there. Those same actors, the exact same people were in the movie as the bandits, as Jonathan's bandits, but they served literally no purpose. None whatsoever. I mean, I have never seen a movie from top to bottom where every single character, apart from the titular character, that being Zegler Snow White, had any agency, any use in the movie whatsoever. Literally, not Jonathan had no use in the film. None.
Well, apparently they wrote a kiss in there for him, which I mean, they really laid it on thick with the romance.
It wasn't there originally. I'm telling you right now. No, you could really tell this movie was cobbled together. Even a lot of the professional reviewers, the top critics, by the way, the top critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, as I was walking into the theater, the top critic score, which RT had not published yet, but you can go manually count the number of top critics' reviews and compare splats to fresh. Well, guess what? The top critic score was at 25%. It was 22-9 against.
Wow. It's deserved because this is, I mean, this is hot garbage. And I'll say that The Marvels was a more entertaining film, even though I rated that an I for incomplete.
Ooh, that's bad,
Trash?
man. Come on, that's harsh. But
The Room is a better film than this because The Room is at least funny more often. This movie is insulting on every level, and I put my review over on criticlist.com. I think I rated it a 4% out of 100, and I really feel like they should gather together, take all the props, all the costumes, all the copies of the scripts, all the computers that hold the information that has the footage of this, just put it in a pit somewhere and light it on fire and never speak of this again. Really?
I mean, this is, I feel people ask, like, why don't studios Batgirl things more often? It's like, well, okay, Batgirl was $90 million, and that was meant for streaming. That was easy for Zaslav. This is nearly $400 million. That's the problem for Disney. It's a dumpster fire. Everything about this was offensive. I mean, the music was terrible. The music, I mean, this was, and I said this the other night, what really, this whole movie was hobbled together with just a bunch of garbage, or cobbled together with a bunch of garbage. This is a classical setting. This should have classical vocals and classical, timeless music styling. But it didn't. They tried to jam in all of this modern Broadway stuff, and it was so generic. I mean, unbelievably generic. Even the song that I said a couple of weeks ago, Waiting on a Wish, and I said, look, this is a smart move by Disney. And I stand behind that. I'm not saying that it's a good song in terms of it standing alone and being a work of art. But commercially, it's a good song for Disney to reach out to the audience they were trying to get to. And that was the Frozen kids. They were trying to make Let It Go 2.0. The problem is that if you just listen to that song by itself on iTunes, it's going to be very catchy for kids. But when you actually go watch this movie, now that I've seen it, and you see that song stuck in the middle of this thing, this abomination of a film, it basically has zero impact. The point of saying that is, and Jonas, tell me if you agree, there is no character development here. I felt nothing. I mean, I felt literally nothing for a single character in this film. This thing was written to move audiences from point A to B to C to D. That was it. There was nothing. I mean, there was no time for development. There was no time for you to get to know characters. It was just, hey, it's Snow White. You know who that is. Here's some stuff in your face. That was it. You get to the end of the movie, you have this ridiculous death scene with the evil queen, which they destroyed.
Oh,
the
my
evil
goodness.
queen. There was nothing evil. Gal Gadot was so corny and so campy. And look, I can't blame Gal Gadot for this. And there's a lot of reasons I can't blame Rachel Zegler either, because the script was terrible, the direction was terrible, the music was terrible. That, the evil queen is supposed to be dark and villainous and scary. It's supposed to give kids, especially, a guttural, emotional, fearful reaction.
Especially when she's the witch. She should be scary when she's the witch. Instead, she just looks old.
She had the same voice, Jonas. Her voice, it was literally Gal Gadot's voice speaking out behind a piece of prosthetic mask. They didn't even try to they didn't disguise it even as an old woman. I mean, it's like, it was just her voice. I'm like,
they should have at least given her Sith eyes, honestly. I just have to say this because I think the people who have not seen this, which is going to be a majority of the audience at this point.
Nobody should watch this shit. Nobody should watch this.
It's a horrible, it's not even it's completely missable. It's if you stuck Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs into an AI generator and just said, make it look like humans, it would be a better film than this.
I already did it.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. But the evil queen's death, she goes to the magic mirror, and the magic mirror literally says, no, you are prettier. No, not this is not direct quotes. You are prettier, but she is a better person than you. And the mirror
You're not far off. That's basically what he said.
And basically turns her into some weird black goop and then sucks her into another dimension. And then it heals the mirror.
Jonas?
Yes.
I know where she went. I understood the reference because we had a trailer before the movie started. You see, she got sucked into the Ender world in the Minecraft movie.
Oh, my.
You see what I did there? Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.